a wonderful, thanks,
Sorry.
Janie, which is a wonderful place to work. We are the NPR PBS affiliate for Southern Virginia. And what's really great about our station is we are the only station in the country that is owned by a conglomerate of school divisions. So we're owned by multiple school divisions from West Point all the way down to Virginia Beach and then the Eastern Shore. So what that means is that we have a number of educational offerings, maybe more than your average public media station, and education is really central to everything we do as a station. So that's why we love to work with teachers and serve teachers. Janie and I are both formal classroom teachers, as she spoke about. I should mention that I'm a former high school social studies teacher from Newport News Public Schools. I taught World History 1 and 2, which were both important SOL courses. So like Janie, have been on the many sides, as all of you have been, of the SOL wheel at this time of the year. So again, excited to be here with you tonight and tell you a little bit more about our resources and our resources as a station. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping things. As you just got the message, the session is being recorded and will be available later this week at this website here. Slides will be shared with you at the end of the session. So a lot of our resources are hyperlinked for you. You don't need to worry about taking copious notes. Everything is hyperlinked and will be shared with you. We also have a survey that will be emailed out, and that is how you will receive your certificate of participation for tonight. And finally, please ask questions. We love for this to be collaborative. If you've used any of the resources that Janie and I are going to talk about tonight, if you have any additional tips, we would love to hear it. So please drop it in the chat, and Janie and I will be happy to share that with the rest of the group.
Thanks, Lindsay. So while we will be kind of spewing a lot of information out at you tonight, we are also going to try to have some interactive points, starting with our next slide, actually. So I know all of you are superheroes, and I would love to know how you're already helping your students prepare for SOL testing. So I have a Jamboard prepared for this, and if you're unfamiliar with Jamboard, I'll switch over to the Jam in a minute, but I want to leave this screen up for about 30 seconds so everyone has a chance to get over there. You can either type into your browser bar bit.ly/SOL Jamboard, or if you have a cell phone on you, you can go ahead and scan the QR link. Like I said, I'll switch over there in a second, but once you're over there, I want you to add a sticky note to the Jamboard, and I want you to tell us what great ways you're already using to prepare your students for SOL testing. And I bet we'll see some of the resources and tools that we're going to use tonight, and we'll see a lot of great ones that I'm sure I've never even heard of. So, all right, let's head over to the Jam. There we go. All right, perfect. I see some coming in already. So like I said, if you're new to Jam, this is a Jamboard. It is a Google Suite tool. And to add a sticky note in here, you're going to come over to the left side toolbar, and it is this white little notepad looking thing towards the middle. That's a sticky note. If you click on that, you will have a sticky note come up. You can connect, not connect, you can change the color, add whatever text you want, move it around the screen, you can resize it. Also, if we run out of space on this first Jam, I also created 2 other frames, as you can see at the top. So if you feel there's not space, feel free to go on to one of the other frames. And no more people can join. Okay, so it looks like there's a limit in our Jamboard, but that's okay. If you weren't able to get in, go ahead and add your method to the chat. We're checking the chat as well. So either the Jamboard or the chat. Lots of games I see. Great tech websites like Nearpod. I love Nearpod. I'm not going to be focusing on that tonight, but that's absolutely one of my favorite sites as well. Ooh, Lexia lessons. I'd like to learn more about that myself. Lots of review games, great. Remediating, bingo, Jenga, escape rooms, yes. Gim kit. Awesome. So 99 plus math. I don't think I've heard of that. Low text stops. I loved IXL. That's such a great resource too. Awesome. So I see a lot of my resources in here that I'm sharing with you tonight. So that's cool. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of these cool things with other people who haven't heard of them yet. And I also see a ton in here that I have never used before that I plan on looking into after tonight's session, which is really exciting for me. So thank you for sharing those with us. And even after tonight, you'll still have access to this Jamboard. So if you want to come back and look at it and see some things other people are using and try them out, you will have access to do that. All right, so let's start going through some of these resources. I'm not going to switch this over to full screen. And by the way, I saw someone said, can you share the link for the Jamboard? Like Lindsay said, everything in our slides is linked. There's URLs everywhere. So after tonight, you'll have access to all of this. We're going to share our slide deck with you. So no worries if there's something that you missed, you'll have access to it. All right, so like I said, I'm not going to go into full screen mode at this time because I'm going to be doing a lot of moving around between tabs in my browser bars. So first, I want to start with some practice question sites. And I saw a lot of these on the Jamboard, which is really great. So I will be the first to admit that these first three resources are not necessarily the most glamorous or the most fun on their own, that is, but they're still really, really important. And I use a lot of these practice questions with the resources that I'm going to show you later, the games, the classroom activities, because we have to get the actual SOL practice questions from somewhere. And as teachers, we're really great at making up questions for our students, but there are some really great options out here for us as well. So the first thing I want to point out is the VDOE website, the Virginia Department of Education. And we know, of course, that's where we go for all of our standards of learning, really in-depth things like that. However, the VDOE, by the way, these pictures, all hyperlinked. That's how I'm getting to all of my other tabs tonight. The VDOE also has a bunch of released test items on their website that I linked you directly to. So like I said, these are not necessarily fun per se, but when I'm creating quizzes or a Kahoot or something fun later on, this is where I'm pulling all of my questions from. Let me open one of these up for us. Let's say chemistry. So if I'm preparing my students for a chemistry SOL, I have access to a past test here. And this is important because not only do our students need to understand the content that's going to be in the SOL tests, but they also should have a good, thorough understanding of the types of questions that are going to be asked and what the style looks like. Not that they're necessarily tricky, but we just want to make sure that we're exposing our students to all different types of questions, because we know it's not just multiple choice, it's not just true, false, whatever it may be. We have all sorts of different types of questions on here, right? So we're going to, I look at this to get all sorts of different types of questions to give to my students later on. And all of these also have the answer sheets as well. You know, sometimes even though we're teachers, we need the answer sheets as well as we're moving along. So my next favorite practice question site is SOL Pass, which I certainly saw mentioned quite a bit. And this picture is linked as well, as they all are. SOL Pass, another great practice question site, elementary, middle, high. I'll click on middle school and maybe I'll be doing the life science test. So lots of great options in SOL Pass, interactives, videos, puzzles, quizzes, things of the sort. Now, a little bit of a caveat with SOL Pass. This is the one and only resource that I'm going to show you tonight that is not totally free. But here's why I'm including it. You do need a login, and that is through your school, either your school division or your individual school. However, many schools do have SOL Pass, and it's not always well known. So if I click on one of these resources, I can search for my school in here, but there are tons of schools in here. And I've worked for 3 different Virginia elementary schools. Turns out all 3 of my elementary schools had SOL Pass, and I did not know about this resource until I got to my 3rd school. And it's something that I really wish I would have known about in my first 2 schools as well. So definitely check out SOL Pass, because if you do have access to it, it is a really great resource with all sorts of different activities for the different tests that you may be showing your students. And my last practice question resource on this slide is Jefferson Lab. That's our 3rd one over here. Jefferson Lab also has practice tests, and this one, as the rest of our resources, will be completely free and available for you to use. So Jefferson Lab is just math and science and also technology. It focuses on STEAM. So you can choose which one you want. So let's do Science 3. And you can choose 5, 10, 20, or 40 questions. So I usually just sent this link to my students and told them, I want you to do Science 3, and I want you to do 20 questions. And I want you to put your name here. Ready? Let's start. So now I'm going to get 5 practice questions. Producer, final answer. Sorry, that isn't right, but it does tell me what the correct answer was. Let's move on to number 2. And I'm going to click through these pretty quickly because I want you to see what it looks like at the end of the quiz as well, because that was my favorite part. I was correct on this one. Perfect. They're magnetic objects, which is an inclined plane. Man, it's been a while since I've done 3rd grade science. The plants need nutrients. Correct. I'm doing pretty good for how quickly I'm reading these. Yay. Okay. So all done. How did I do? I can record this number to go back to it later if I want to, but that's not entirely necessary. I understand. All right. So here's the great part. Whoever took this test can copy their results and send a copy to any email address, so they can send it to themselves, their parents. If a student is taking this, they can send it to your email address as a teacher. So Jefferson Lab was always one of my station rotations as we got closer to SOL season. And I would say, I want you to do 3rd grade science. I want you to do 20 questions, and I want you to get an 80% or better. So make sure when you're finished with the test, you enter my email address right here, which I wrote up on the board, and they entered my email address, they clicked send it, and then I could go in and check to see if they did get that 80% or better, and also which question types they got correct or incorrect. And now I know what that student needs some more work on in the future. And I also really like the way that a lot of these questions are worded. So like I mentioned before, I took a lot of the Jefferson Lab questions and then put them into my more fun games later on, my Kahoots, my quizzes, things like that. All right. So those are my practice question sites. And now I want to move on to some visual resources. These are for our students who do best, not necessarily reading a bunch of questions or articles or whatever it may be, but our students who want to watch videos, read comics, things like that. So first, of course, is good old Khan Academy, which I had to include. I'm sure most of you have heard of Khan Academy, but Khan covers all subjects, although in my personal opinion, their math videos are the most helpful for students. And this guy with this really soothing voice does the problem up on the screen and talks us through it. So here are all of the different categories in Khan. Like I said, I prefer the math in Khan, but I have used all of them, to be honest with you. So maybe I'm a high school math teacher in Algebra 2, and I know that I'm going to be teaching polynomial division. So I can shoot this link over to my students, and here's what it's going to look like for them.
We're already familiar with the idea of a polynomial, and we spent some time adding polynomials, subtracting polynomials, and multiplying polynomials,
And he
factor x squared plus 3x plus 2, and we've done.
I skipped ahead a little bit so you could see he goes through the whole thing step by step, writes it out as the students would. It's really great. And we know Khan Academy for their videos, but the best part is it's not just videos. You know, they also have some, they call them articles, pieces for students to read if that's the way that they learn best. Or they have some little quizzes in here too that students can take. Typically with Khan Academy, I either just shot the link over to my students, or if I was in like Nearpod or Schoology or something like that, I would embed a Khan Academy video into my lessons. But if you really wanted to, you could create a Khan Academy login and, you know, create a classroom and all that good stuff. But you'll find them everywhere. They're in Edpuzzle, they're in, you know, all sorts of really different great places. Definitely check out Khan Academy if you have not yet. The next one, Amoeba Sisters. This is a fun new one for me. I never used this in the classroom, but I was asking other teachers this week what they like to use for SOL prep. And this is an answer that I got. So Amoeba Sisters is a really great website. They also have a very, very heavy social media presence. They are on all of these different platforms, which is really cool. And Amoeba Sisters are mainly science-based, a little bit of math sometimes, but what I love about them is they have all these really fun videos, but also GIFs or GIFs, whatever you call them. I call them GIFs, but hey, whatever you want to call them. Comics, webtoons. So it's not just one method of media for your students to look at, it's several fun methods of media for your students. So let's take a look at what a webtoon of theirs looks like really quickly. And as I was looking at these, I thought Monsters and Microbes was a pretty good one. I was like, wow, I can see showing this to my students. They look at these webtoons, these comics, these GIFs, and then I could already start imagining a lesson I could have with my students where they start creating comics of their own and GIFs of their own. And suddenly we have a full-blown STEAM lesson. And I wish this page was loading. I apologize that it's not. Looks like my internet is just a little bit sketchy tonight. But anyway, they're super, super fun comics. I know it's not the website. The website was working fine for me earlier. Definitely check out Amoeba Sisters, whether it's on their website or one of their social media platforms. I think it's one that our students would have a really great time with. Oh, there it is. So they're all these really cute little comics that have to do with science and math and the things that students can relate to and have fun with. Okay. And then I also want to show you Edpuzzle as a visual resource. This is a site where you can upload or find videos, and then you can add stopping points to ask students questions before they move on to the rest of the video. And man, my internet is really having a moment tonight, but that's okay. So you can download videos that you find on other sites like emediava.org or wherever you find your videos, and you can upload those right into Edpuzzle. Or Edpuzzle also has a really great feature where you can just search for YouTube videos right in there, which is what I did. And if it will ever load, you'll see in their search feature, I typed in Battle of Great Bridge because I knew it's something that I wanted to focus on with my students because, that's one of our SOLs, and maybe it's not something that's stuck in my first lesson. And I really need to get my point across again. So I found a really great video, a YouTube video on the Battle of Great Bridge. And then I found this video where another teacher, an Edpuzzle, perfect, finally, had put in some stopping points and asked some really great questions where I could check my students' understanding of the video. So I'm not just throwing them a video, expecting them to watch it and hoping that they did. I can really also check that they're watching the video by checking their comprehension. So this is the video. And of course, we're not going to play that whole thing, but here is the stopping points. You can see at 119, they added a multiple choice question, 145, another question, and so on and so forth. And I wish they were coming up. I apologize for my poor internet connection tonight, but you create a classroom pretty quickly in Edpuzzle. And when you're finished with one of these videos with all the questions, you share this out with your students, and it's very easy. They have a code that they enter at edpuzzle.com. And here it is. Why was this area so important during the revolution? They have to answer the question. Once they do, they can move on in the rest of the video. So in my slides, I want to move on to some games. I'm going to show you.
Before we move on, there's a couple of comments and questions. So maybe you could speak to, Rebecca said that that you really need to use the paid version to work correctly of Edpuzzle and not be super frustrating. So I don't know if you have experience with that, working with both of them. And then Jessica asked if Amoeba Sisters is for all SOL grades or just the lower grades.
So Amoeba Sisters does not necessarily have SOLs listed on it. So it's one of those sites that you have to go through and see if it matches with the SOLs that you're working on. I found that even though it looks like it's for younger grades, it actually has a lot of topics like microbiomes and things that we did not really cover in lower elementary grades. Topics I felt like that are more appropriate for secondary students. So in my opinion, you could use it for a variety of grade levels, elementary and secondary. And then the comment about Edpuzzle, I personally don't have that same opinion. I have only ever used the free version and I've had a great experience, but definitely feel free to stick around afterwards and maybe we can talk about some of those frustrations that you're having. So before I pass this over to Lindsay, I want to show you some of my favorite games that I use with my students, because this is the really fun part, right? I'm going to show you my two favorite virtual games, which I know look familiar to you, and then also some of my favorite in-person classroom games as well that I use with my students. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm getting all of my content for these games from the first slide that I showed you, the VDOE website, SOL Pass, JLab. I'm stealing those questions and putting them into quizzes and look at and all of these other fun games that we play. So head over to quizzes. I'm sure you're familiar with quizzes. It's super fun. It was always my favorite resource as a teacher, and it was my students' favorite resource as well. And what I want to point out to you in quizzes is that you can look for quizzes that other teachers have made as well. And that usually was primarily how I found all of my best quizzes, honestly. So if you're in Explore, which we see over here on the left-hand side, I could type in, you see I was looking for Virginia Studies SOL. And here I have a whole bunch of quizzes that have already been created by other teachers on Virginia Studies. And I can take a look at all these questions, make sure they're appropriate for my students, and then I can use these quizzes with my students and check how my students are doing. So I want to go to my library because I created a special one for us. If you have never played quizzes before, you are going to today, because we're going to play Are You Smarter Than a Virginia fifth grader? So I'm going to do a live quiz. We'll do scores, we'll do classic. And I have all sorts of options. Continue. There's only 7 questions in here, so it won't be too long. We'll get through these pretty quickly, but you'll get to see what this looks like from a student view. And these are all questions that you could possibly find on the Virginia 5th grade Virginia Studies SOL. So you are going to go to joinmyquiz.com. You can go on a computer, tablet, cell phone, whatever you're comfortable with. And once you go to joinmyquiz.com, you're going to enter our code that you see on the screen, 441100. I'll give it about 30 seconds and then we'll get started, and you'll still be able to join even after that 30 seconds. So no worries if you don't make that cutoff. I loved quizzes. Honestly, we would use this all year with 1st, 2nd, and 5th grade. And they were always begging for more. This is the one resource in my classroom that just like never ever old. They loved it. And I can see all of you joining. Cool. I'll give you about 10 more seconds here before I get rolling with our 7 questions. We'll see who here is a Virginia Studies buff. Okay. And if you don't want to join, no worries. You can just watch from the teacher view as well. All right, I'm going to click start, but you'll still be able to get in. No worries. I can see how everyone is doing. And my join code is still up here if you're still trying to join, FYI. I can also cut over to the questions so that I can recall what the questions were if I forget. And I can see how my students are doing. 16 got number 2 correct. 2 people got it wrong. Back to my leaderboard. Ooh. We have Jacqueline in the lead at the moment. A couple others close behind. We'll go for about 30 more seconds, and then I'll give you a little 10-second countdown. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay, congratulations to our top 3, Jacqueline, CB, and Allison. Good job. So quizzes also gives you a lot of other options too. That's not the only game style. You can also do this whole class and go question by question all together at once so that you can discuss each question afterwards. You can assign this as homework so that students are, they have a link or a code and they're doing it on their own time. There are lots of different ways to play these games, but this was by far my number one. I used to go find tests that other teachers already had made, and then I would edit them and add in some of those questions from the VDOE tests and have the perfect mixture to give my students some practice. And then, of course, we always had plenty of rewards for participating. And the last one that I want to show you quickly is Book It. I saw quite a bit of you using this as well. Book It is same company as Quizlet. So if you are a Quizlet person, good news, you can bring all of your Quizlet sets over into Book It to play games in here. So when you create sets, it's basically like flashcard sets. There's like a word and then a definition to that match together. And then Book It creates games for you. So I made these 2, but just like in quizzes, you can find ones that other educators have made. If you just go to Discover, you can type in whatever it is that you're looking for. I found a great Virginia Studies one yesterday that somebody else made. It was really popular, but for our math people, we'll go ahead and do our fraction one. We'll spend only about a minute on this game, and there's only 4 questions anyway. But if my screen loads in the next 10 seconds, we'll do the fraction one. I like Book It. This is a newer one for me in the past couple of years. Okay, host. See, there's a bunch of different game types you can choose from. We're going to do Fishing Frenzy. I will say there is a 60 player limit on the free version, but most of us don't have classrooms that are more than 60 people. So usually that is not an issue. Okay, we'll do time, and I'm going to give you 1 minute. Host now. All right, you can go to play.bookit.com and enter this game ID, and we're only going to play this game for a minute, but go ahead so you can take a look at what this looks like for students as well. And you should see as you're signing up, you can change your little avatar if you want to, which is really cool. Kids, it's really cool. At least for elementary kids, it's cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this started so we can see what it looks like. But just like last time, the ID is still up here if you want to join. And it's giving you some quick directions. You basically click in the water to pass your line. You answer the question, and if you get it right, you get points. So I know you're all getting questions right now that you're answering, and from a teacher view, I'm seeing who's answering I'm gonna turn the music off. Who's answering the most questions correctly? And I'm also seeing all these answers pop up that you're answering correctly. And don't forget to keep an eye on your timer because there are 30 seconds left on our timer. And you can set that for as many minutes as you would like to. I could have set it for 20 minutes, but obviously for tonight's time's sake, I set it for 1 minute. There's about 15 seconds left. Trev is in the lead at the moment. 5 seconds left. Congrats to our top 3, Trev, Dodge, and Allison again. I wonder if that's the same Allison. Congratulations, good job. And then I can view a report to see exactly how all of my students did on these different question types. And of course, what my students need help with, what I need to focus on before that SOL test comes. So I am going to pass this over to Lindsay now, but I do just want to point out, although I didn't get to everything on all of these slides, the next 3 slides are all hyperlinked, so you have access to all these really great resources. These are classroom games that you can play in person. They're not virtual. There's a lot of moving around, throwing things, working with partners, teams, stuff like that. If you find you have questions about any of them, just feel free to ask me in email or however you're comfortable. I also put some really great free Teachers Pay Teacher resources in here. They're all editable, so they're things that you can, backspace and type in and make your own. And then a couple of mindfulness and anti-anxiety resources, including yoga and stretching, so that our students feel nice and calm and relaxed right before testing day. So definitely check all of those out whenever you get a chance.
Thanks, Janie. Those were wonderful resources. And while I am setting up and sharing my screen, we did have a Q&A question about uploading a test to Quizlet so that it could be sent to Blookit. The question was, do you know how to do that? Is that something that's possible?
Quick answer so that Lindsay can get started. It's been a while since I've been in Quizlet, and someone else in the chat may be able to help. I do think you can upload certain files into Quizlet, like maybe a CSV, like an Excel sheet or something, where the 2 columns, are your word and your matching sentence or whatever. And then anything you have in Quizlet, you can bring over to Blookit. But if anyone can help us out, let us know. But I do think there are certain file types you can put into Quizlet.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if anyone has any advice that's for the good of the group, that would be great. Janie, can you see my screen? Okay,
Yes.
Great. So again, Janie shared some really wonderful resources and talked a lot about and shared some about visual resources. And I think that's also what eMedia VA would fall to as well. So as we've already discussed, testing season is right around the corner. And for many of you, you're already in the middle of it. So eMedia VA, if you're not familiar, even if you are, you might not be familiar with some of the different ways that you can use eMedia VA for end of year test review, including SOL. So we have a plethora of resources to support student learning and to prepare your students for those anxiety-inducing end of year assessments. And also reviewing with digital media, things like videos, interactives, primary sources, games can really take some of the pain out of the drill and kill and give students the practice that they need. And also they have their own resources that they can reference that they need to conquer high stakes testing. So I'm quickly going to share 3 ways that you can utilize eMedia VA for test prep, and then we'll also look at some examples of resources and also want to leave some time for questions. But, as we said at the beginning, if you have used any resources from eMedia VA in your test review, if you have any questions as we're going through, please let us know. And also, I see lots of people are asking questions in the Q&A. The chat is a great place to drop because then it's kind of for the good of everybody. So if you're not familiar, just quickly, eMedia VA is a free digital media content library for Virginia teachers and students. It is operated out of WHRO Public Media, but we receive funding through the Virginia Department of Ed to operate for free statewide. So accounts are completely free for all public, private, and home educators in Virginia, including parents who maybe just want an account to use with students at home. I was going to say something about accounts that has now totally slipped my mind. Oh yes, about 95% of our resources are available without login. So if you're not wanting to deal with logins or you're looking for resources to share with parents to use at home, eMedia, you can feel confident sharing with parents and guardians and not have to worry about them having their own login. As you'll see, we're going to go into a search and look at some resources, and I am not currently logged into my account. And we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about how eMedia VA works. So I have linked here in the corner to our eMedia VA tutorials. We have different videos and PDFs about how to get started. So what's unique about eMedia VA is that there's obviously a ton of places you can go for digital media. Janie shared a few already, but what's unique about eMedia VA is that we're the only digital media content library that supports the Virginia SOLs. Everything is tagged to the Virginia SOLs and is searchable by Virginia SOLs. So we are not concerned with national standards. We really exist to support Virginia teachers and what you all teach every day. Just a quick note on logging in, if you're not familiar, if your division uses Clever and ClassLink, chances are we are already connected that way. And then there are divisions that have other ways of logging in, and then we also manually create accounts. So if you have any questions about account creation or having an account, we can stick around for a little bit and talk about that afterwards. So just a few quick ways. So I'm going to review these and then we'll kind of jump over to the site. But at its most basic, you can use our search function to find great resources that match whatever it is you're wanting to review. So you can filter by grade level, subject, or media type. And we're going to jump to the site and do that in a minute. What's also great is for our elementary students is that Janie and I, some years ago, worked in our station, continues to build collections based on SOL strands in the SOL tested core content areas. So we have hundreds of collections that you can look through and find different media to review. These are also really great for you to simply share with parents and students who might need some additional support at home. They're already created for you. You can also easily create your own collections and then share them with students if you would like. For example, I mentioned in the chat, I'd love to do station reviews for SOL. So you could create different collections for different stations or just merely create a full, fractions review and then SOL review and share that if you would like. And then for secondary students, we've also created some of those SOL strands, but then our station also has wonderful interactives for the high school SOL courses that are fully SOL aligned and are really great to use with secondary students. So we're going to look at some examples of all of these, and I will show you where you can find them. So as we've already mentioned a couple times, all of our resources are linked. This is a QR code, but it's also hyperlinked there in the title. I created a blog that kind of is just a mind dump of some of our favorite SOL review collections. So now I'm going to jump over to the site and show you some different things that you can use and that hopefully you'll find really beneficial over the next few weeks. So here we are on the homepage. And as I said, again, I am not logged in. So you can narrow down by SOL. So even I did a training yesterday in Henrico, and they had the economy coming up as something they were studying. So I dug in deep to those social studies. I was looking at 1.8 in the social studies standards to see what I could find. So that could be really beneficial for you. Grade level, obviously, type. So it is good to mention too, and I'm sure many of you are already doing this, but feel free to use the media you already have used throughout the year to teach to also review. I would do that a lot. One comes to mind. I have this great video that reviewed, 3 things that students had to know about the French Revolution. When it came time for SOL review, we would watch that video and then we would say, okay, quickly, do we already know this? And then we're moving on. So it's great to maybe pull back some of that media that you've already used throughout the year to really ignite students' memory. You can narrow down by type. And then if you know a specific vendor We have resources in different languages. Those are available for you as well. We could talk a lot about all these different collections. As I mentioned, I've created a blog post with a lot of specific, but then we also just have curated collections we're already switching out. So Earth Day, Changing Seasons, the Cold War I know is coming up, some resources for Earth Day, and then some of these here are already linked and we're going to talk about. So I wanted to start, and I should mention too, eMedia VA is pre-K through 12th grade, and we cover all content areas. So I'm going to start just by doing a search on World War II, and we're not going to look specifically at any of this media, but just to show you one way that you can find great review media. So we have over 1,600 results here. We have videos, we have interactives, we have documents here. So this is a video that provides like a 13-minute broad introduction to World War II. So that could be a really great review video. We have another one here on the causes of World War II, Nazis before World War II in America, rationing during World War II. And then we have some interactives here on the causes and leaders. So let's narrow down by video. Okay, so there are some titles. The end of World War II, women in combat. So if we just go to the second page here and look at some more, there was one specifically I wanted to show that, of course, now I cannot find it all. Let's see if it's on the third page. Okay, so just to show you, this is a video. You see it's coming up, but it's also marked as a gallery up, and this is going to require login because it might feature some content that's not appropriate for all K through 12, so it's not going to let students see that. But there is more than just one video here, so we can see the attack on Pearl Harbor, rationing, the Bataan Death March. So there's lots of different resources within a gallery. So again, one of the first ways that we can use eMedia VA or any digital media content library is to simply do a keyword search and use some filters to find something really specific to review with your students. So talking about some of those collections for both elementary and secondary that we have already made for you, or again, you can feel free to create your own. So I have this blog that again is already linked for you, and it's broken down by elementary and secondary. So just to show you what I mean by social studies review collections. So they're all on one page. We've created collections. I guess my internet is also not wanting to cooperate for K through 5. That are nested here on one collection. So we have economics, we have maps, geography, US holidays, American Indians, ancient Egypt, ancient China, Jamestown. And I know these cover different grade levels, but it's just kind of one place to have them all. So there we see an example from social studies. We have the same for science. You can see for math, we have wonderful resources. Good to Know is a great at-home resource for students and their families. It shows families how to teach and review math at home. And then this is a recent collection that we put together at the request of the Virginia Department of Education. So these are K all the way up to Algebra 1 math resources, and they are broken down into various collections. You can see there's a collection here for kindergarten, just on numbers and number sense. We see it for first, all the way up here, 8th grade, dilations, box plots, Algebra 1. So again, we've gone through and pulled some of our favorite resources and really, tried to make it as easy as possible for you to use our resources. So those are just some examples at the elementary level. Again, when you have more time, you can review more, but under secondary, so I mentioned that our station creates our own interactives, and some school divisions pay for these and they become their virtual school, but a lot of the full courses are available in eMedia VA. So these cover to the letter everything that is covered by the SOL. And right now, we only do high school, but as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of overlap between middle and high school content. So a lot of these, maybe not the full course, but a lot would still be relevant for your students to review. So we have those for the full the full social studies course online, and then also science. We don't for ELA, but I have linked here some other ELA review collections. And then for math, we have a video collection that follows the SOLs where it features a teacher teaching for geometry and Algebra 1. And then we also have full course interactives for geometry and algebra as well. So just to show you a couple of examples, I taught world history, so I will show you that. If we have any other world history teachers, you're going to recognize this right away. The High Middle Ages. And there was actually, pre-Columbian civilizations in the Americas review. So some of these are just content that students are going to go through, but some are also review games, as you can see here. So let's look also at one in science for earth science. So clicked on the wrong one. That is our full video course. And then these are the earth science interactives. Okay, so implementing the scientific method. So these are going to launch in a new window, and it's similar to direct instruction in that students are going to go through the information.
You may know
on
the
their
steps
own.
of the scientific method, but what does the process look like in real life?
And I'm not sure how to move this forward. That's supposed to slide and it's not sliding. Okay, let's go back and look here at one of our world history. All of these reviews are right at the end. Okay, let's look at the origins and beliefs of Islam review. So a person who practices Islam is known as a Muslim. True. So this is obviously an example of a review question. So you could use these as a station. You could assign them to students for homework. You could do them as a class. Or again, just post these for your students to have at home for additional review. So as you can see, some of these are review, just like we saw, and I'd really like to show you one that just shows direct instruction before we close.
Earth science is a dynamic subject that incorporates astronomy, geology, meteorology, and oceanography into one science. Which branch would you like to explore first? It's your choice. Click on any of the images to get started. Do you use rock and mineral resources in your daily life?
Okay. So as you can see, that is essentially direct instruction, but studies show that even the mere act of having students click through a resource automatically engages their brain more than if they were just listening to someone speak and give the exact same lesson. So these are great to have in your back pocket. And again, you can see we have these for all of the social studies and science and math courses that are tested. Not algebra 2, unfortunately, but for algebra 1 and geometry, which is the test that most students take, we have a plethora of resources. And then outside of those two, we have some other interesting resources here from Nova Labs, Chemistry Matters, lots of great resources here. And we'll continue to add to this over the next few weeks, but a really nice start that is again linked for you in this presentation and is here via this link and QR code. So if you have any questions about using eMedia VA, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can stick around for a few minutes after. But we hope that you found this beneficial, both some of the strategies and tech tools that Janie shared, and then also some of the eMedia VA collections that we've created for you. And again, if there are any collections that would be more beneficial, if they're good for one, they're good for all, please let us know. Our emails are listed here. But again, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we hope you have a great night and a great rest of the school year. And Janie, feel free if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so like Lindsay said, thank you so much, and stick around if you have questions to ask us. We'll answer anything. If you've got to run, thank you and see you later. I did just put the link to our slides in the chat. That is going to prompt you to make a copy so that you have your own copy of these Google Slides that you can do whatever you would like to do with. It's full of links and great resources. Definitely check those out. Sometime tomorrow, Zoom is going to send you an email, and it's going to ask you to please take a very brief survey. If you do complete that survey, There will be a certificate of participation at the end of that survey. I suggest taking that survey on a computer or laptop because the certificates are in Google Slide and PowerPoint format, which are just easier to access typically on a computer of sorts. Okay. Lindsay,
Well, thank you all. Yes, I messaged Rebecca. You said that you had, I don't know if you're still here, that you had a difficult time getting into eMedia VA. So I asked you what school division you were with, so you can drop that in the chat or just message me directly. Also, feel free to email Janie or I, and we'd be happy to help you with eMedia VA accounts if you're having problems.
Mhm.